the rest of that crew of them around the ballpark for me as a kid. And being a huge baseball fan that I am, that was one of my favorite places to be. And watching these guys as a young kid was a highlight of my weeks, getting to go out and watch them in a tournament, or one night during the week if they were in a league out in maybe at the Arvin Park or somewhere like that. And it was awesome. And I remember I just was drawn watching Duke hit a softball because he was just strong. Him and Alan Norris, boy, these guys were just strong men, and I'd watch them. And something about Duke's, that just his swing, I really loved watching this big, strong guy, and I loved his swing. And so I was kind of drawn to him just because of that, I think, when I was a kid. And I always look back and think, and I remember Duke always called me Little Huck. And so he coined that phrase. And most of my life, even when I would see him in places as an adult, he would say, "Hey, Little Huck," and but I took that with great pride and great honor when he would talk to me like that, and it meant so much. And so I had a lot of special memories there. He would play catch with me before games when they were warming up, the guys were warming up, and he'd holler at me and say, "Come here," and he'd want me to play catch with him. And as a young kid, I just thought that was really cool that this big guy wanted me to play catch with him before a ball game. And I remember when I was about 12, he gave me one of his baseball gloves. And I just remembered that meant the world to me. Like I said, as a kid who loved baseball, that meant so much when he handed me that glove and said, "I want you to have this one." It was a Ron Say special. And I just loved that glove. And I have a lot of other fond memories of my time growing up, being around them at their house barbecuing. And I remember when the girls were younger, and because I'm older than them, and they were growing up, they were little, and I have these memories as I've been processing these last few weeks. I remember trips out to the lake, and just a lot of good times many years ago. Those are the things I remember. If we fast forward to current times, it's been a lot of fun for me these past couple of years to have with Duke what I would call a different season of life type of conversations as men, as husbands, as fathers, and most importantly as believers. That was a big part of our conversations that we would have. He would often pull up at my house in the morning to pick up my dad so they could go golfing, and I would be coming back from the gym early in the morning, and we would talk in the driveway about different things while he was waiting on my dad to come out, and we would talk about working out at the gym and golf, and we would talk about our Savior. Those are conversations that we had, and I enjoyed those conversations. And a few weeks before his passing, he got there a little early one morning, and I was just getting there, and we probably stood out there. I stood in the driveway for about 15 minutes with him, and I don't know what my dad was doing, but it was cold. Yeah, I know. He never shows up at the same time. You could never, he'd be there super early, or didn't he be late, and he's just out there, and I'm in my shorts and a T-shirt, and it's super cold, and I've been at the gym and hot and sweaty, and he just wants to talk. And so I stood there leaning inside the window of the truck as we just chatted it up and had a great conversation for about 15 minutes, and finally I said, "I got to go in the house. I'm freezing." But I just remember those conversations, and those were great. And because of that, all of that stuff I just shared with you guys, to me, I want to say that it's an honor to be part of this day today, celebrating his life. I really mean that. I don't always have the privilege of presiding over days like today of someone that I considered a friend, or someone that I had a unique relationship, or especially someone that I grew up and around for and have known for so long. So today is special for me as well, being up here and getting to share. And we've seen God's hand in this at different times in all kinds of different ways. And so today's going to be a great day as we celebrate. And so Duke himself, he was born on December 24th, 1955 to Herbert and Pauline Perry. And he passed away just one day after celebrating his 67th birthday. And he went from celebrating Christmas here, celebrating his birthday and Christmas here on earth, to celebrating, I don't know that they really celebrate Christmas in heaven, but he was celebrating in heaven on that day. And that's a special, special day. We talked at the hospital that day about What if he goes today? What if he goes on Christmas Day? Will there forever be a reminder that that was the day he left us? But that's a day that we celebrate because that is the day that he left us, but what a day to celebrate. He left on Christmas Day. And I know that for him, that had to be an important moment in his life. So Duke was the youngest of 7 kids, and he graduated from Arvin High in 1974. Go Bears. Got some others in the house, right? While there, he would meet and later marry his sweetheart, Vicky. Lucky for him, from what I understand, that he walked upon the extension of a dare. Something to the effect of Vicky saying, well, fine, to somebody, the next guy around that corner is the one that I'll just date. And lo and behold, who walked around the corner? Have you ever stopped and thought about the other people that could have walked around the corner that day? Do you ever run into any of those people and think, I am so glad you did not walk around that corner, right? As we look back on life, a lot of us could probably have moments like that. But boy, there he was, and the rest is some significant history. Duke went to work at Jamara Wineries until 1976, and then he started working at Granite Construction for 35 years. Any of his Granite Construction workers here today? See some of you guys raising hands and said, oh, yeah, spent time. As a side note, I think another reason I liked Duke so much as a kid is I always had a Granite hat. And I wore a hat 24 hours a day. It was like, I'd take it off when I would fall asleep if I had to, if my mom made me. But as soon as I woke up, man, I'd put my hat on. And I had Granite hats for years, that green Granite hat, And so I have a lot of unique memories like that as well. But, Duke was kind of a strong and straightforward man. And he spent a lot of days these last couple of years golfing on the golf course with his buddy Ted, who happens to be my dad, and you'll hear from him in a bit. And if he wasn't out on the links, then you would probably find him in his recliner, and he would probably be watching some form of sports, something, whatever it was, he would find. And if there wasn't any sports on worth watching, he would probably find an old Western or something along those lines, as we talked about at the house. And if you know Duke, he loved working out. He loved lifting weights. And that's why he would love to talk to me after I get back from the gym. Now, I look nothing like him. I don't have that build at all, but I'm trying to stay healthy. And so he would tell me, all right, now, if you're wanting to bulk up, this is what you need to do. And if you're trying to get, and he would give me the rundown on what I needed to be doing in my workouts. So we know he knew what he was talking about. Little fun things about Duke. He was the master of the remote. He owned the remote control. That was his baby. He thought he was a grill master. I say thought because the kids say something totally different. I got that day. Like we were talking and you're like, yeah, he thought he was the grill master, but that's not the case. And, and he loved things like Spencer's Cafe and places like that. And the grandkids, I'm sure you're going to hear some stories a little bit shared. But he was, they'll tell you, he was their candy man and their taxi driver and always their cheerleader, no matter what they did. That's who he was. And, there's some things Duke didn't like. He didn't like Facebook, they said, and he didn't like Chinese food. He didn't like texting, and he didn't like to swim. If you wanted to talk to him, you need to call him on the phone. He didn't want to text. He wanted to talk. And things that Duke cherished most, I think, in his life was his family. That was what was of utmost importance to him. And over the years, he was grateful and blessed to watch his family grow. And they have grown, and they are spread out here across these first few rows. And he has left behind, a great legacy to follow. And he loved listening to and watching his grandkids, especially when they were just running around the house having fun. That noise and that sound, those sights really thrilled him and filled his heart so much. When we were out at the house talking, I loved Zoe was telling me that one night they were up late watching a Western and that he paused it. And he just told her that he was blessed and that he loved his family and that he prays for them and that he loved her. That's what he wanted to be. This big, tough, strong guy that was, when I was a kid growing up, is like, man, this was a big, strong guy. He's a big teddy bear inside. He loved these grandkids. And as Duke has left us here, he's left behind a legacy, as I said, his beautiful wife and best friend of 45 years. Pretty good run for a guy walking around a corner at high school. They've got 5 kids left that are here, and Deanna and Kevin and Leah and Matt, Shiloh and Jason, Derek and Angela and Jared and Courtney. And he is blessed with 20 grandkids and 1 beautiful great-granddaughter. Being nice and quiet over here. I'm so impressed. And he leaves behind 4 siblings, Bob, Donna, Sis, and Linda, and numerous friends that he considered his family. And Duke would always say, as you probably hear someone else refer to, that he was a blessed man coming or blessed man going. It didn't matter. He really believed that his life had been blessed. And as part of that blessing that Duke lived in, we're going to hear some special memories. The family has asked a couple of friends to share, and then there'll be a couple of family things as well. And these are the special times. We don't have time to have everybody share. There isn't an opportunity for that. I will say that when we're done here, the Perry family has invited everyone to come on out to their house, and I'll give you that address at the end of the service. If you want to come out and hang out and share your stories and share your memories, they would love to hear all about your interactions with him. We just don't have enough time to do it here. We'd be here for days if everybody had to share their Duke stories. So we picked a few in particular that we're going to share in this morning, and they're in your memorial folder. And if you don't, I'll just make sure that they, I'm sure they will explain their relationship to Duke as they come up, but I'm going to ask my dad. He's going to come up and he's going to share with us first.
Hello. um, Duke was several years younger than me, so we didn't go to school together, play football, any of that stuff. But we got together later in life for our love for softball, and played softball against Duke. And then later on, we had a team. We played softball together, combos, and a lot of the guys in here we played together. We had a lot of good times, and it was a fun time, like Kevin says. We talked to Bob earlier, and just a lot of good memories with that. That's kind of how we got hooked up, and that just kind of brought us together, and it was really fun times, and our lives had a lot of similarities. We had what we called, as we talked about now, we had what we called our first lives and our second lives. And our first lives, we played hard and we partied hard, and we talked about a lot of things now that, and we had a lot of fun. There's no question about it. I mean, we partied hard and we had a lot of fun back then. At least we thought we did. But about 30 years ago, both of us gave our life to the Lord, and it changed everything. We both said that there are plenty of things that we'd go back and change if we could. But God still chose to take us as we were and use us, and for that we were eternally grateful. And we talked about it a lot. We talked about it weekly, if not daily, when we were playing golf. I accidentally ran into Duke while playing golf out at BV Golf Course one day, and it was at the end of April in 2020, right after my wife, Pat, had passed away. And I was playing by myself, and the guys, I come up on a par 3, guys just let me go through. And after I hit, I turned around, and this guy says, Ted, and I looked up, and it was Duke, and we basically almost didn't recognize each other. You know, it'd been a long time, and like, man, who's this old guy? And he's like, who's this old guy, you know? And then, so he shared his condolences about Pat, and we talked just for a minute, and then we went on our way. And in a couple of weeks, Duke called me, and he says, hey, man, you just been on my heart. And he says, I'd like to get together with you and play golf. And what do you think? And I said, man, I'm all in. Let's do it. And so the reason I'm speaking here today is for the next 2.5 years, Duke and I averaged playing golf together 3 days a week, at least. That was after every time we stopped and got out of the truck. After we got home, get out of the truck, said, you know, we're going to play tomorrow. And he says, oh, I want to play, but let me go ask Vic, and I'll call you. That was every day. And so we played all the county courses here. We played Rio Bravo a few times, and then we took a lot of road trips to the coast. We go to my sisters and brother-in-law, Junior Stokes, and we'd go over there and play at Morro Bay, Monarch, Santa Maria, Cypress, Black Lake, all of them. And Duke loved Cypress. That was his favorite golf course on the coast. But he loved the road trips more than he loved the golf. I'd put all my playlists and I'd punch it into the radio, whether it was my truck or his truck, and we'd play on the way over. We'd start out in the morning. We'd play had a Christian playlist. We'd play it. We'd get us about 2/3 of the way, and then we'd play country music the rest of the way. And then on the way back, we'd play oldies rock all the way home. So I remember one morning going over, I had a song called How Great Is Our God. And Duke had never heard that song. And I put it in, and we're driving. I look over, and he's got tears rolling down his face. I mean, this was Duke. And he just never heard that song, and it just got all over him. Coming home, we're putting in the rock song all the way home, and he's beating the dash out of the truck, and beating the windows and everything else, and just going crazy. And when we get home, he's like, man, he said, the road trip is way more fun than the golf, and he says, man, we got to go again, and we did. We made several trips, and so that was fun. And later on, him and I and Junior, we went to St. George, Utah for 4 days and just played golf and just had a blast. And we seen him. He got his first eagle over there at the coast. He got another eagle in St. George, and I got one. And he was way more excited over mine than I was. And I mean, that was just Duke. He'd get all excited, and he'd talk about everything. And Bob and I was talking. I was playing golf by myself, and I'd go out there and I wouldn't say 5 words because I was just by myself. And this was after Pat passed, so it was just kind of therapy for me. Well, if you know Duke, I'd go play with Duke. Well, he doesn't ever stop talking. And Kevin's talking about he comes out there and talks to him and talks about stuff. Well, he would talk to a rock while he was waiting on me. It wouldn't make any difference. That's Duke. He doesn't ever run out of words. So every time we went golfing, the one thing about it, I mean, we laughed half the day. I mean, that was our golf. It was just, we had more fun talking and laughing than we did playing, and we had a lot of fun playing. But I learned a lot of things about Duke while I was playing with him. One, I learned, without a doubt, he loved the Lord more than anything. He loved Vic and his family, just unbelievable. We talked about it all the time. He loved golf. He dearly loved golf. But he learned that it was just fun. He used to get all excited about it. Now we just had fun, but he loved it. He loved to laugh. I mean, that guy literally loved to laugh. He would just almost cry laughing. He would accuse me every day of staying up nights to think about stuff just to make him laugh. And every time we went out there, he loved music, and he loved every kind, from, like I said, from How Great Is Our God to Baby Likes to Rock It Like a Boogie Woogie Choo Choo Train. That was his, if you know that's one of his favorites. And he, he loved it all. He loved watching sports, baseball, Angels, Dodgers. He'd call me, he'd call me on the Dodgers. They drove him crazy. They drove me crazy. We talked a lot about that. He liked watching softball, girls softball especially. He liked watching golf. He liked watching girls golf more than the guys. We talked about that. NASCAR, rodeo, he loved that. He loved watching Westerns. We talked about that. John Wayne and them, the Duke, but that wasn't how he got his name. That wasn't it. Duke Snyder, he was prominent about how he got his name. And he loved Gunsmoke. That was his favorite Western. And two things about that: Festus was his man. He loved Festus, and he hated Chester. There was no reason for Chester to be on that show. And if he told me that once, he told me that probably 100 times. Chester should have never had a part on that show. But Duke loved the Lord more than anything. And he told me about the time that he went to his mom's house and told her that he was no good. And he said he told her he was just no good. And he said she looked at him and told him that you're not no good, you're just lost. And he said, well, then how did I get found? And at that point, he gave his life to the Lord right then. And he said he knew for the first time in his life, he found what he was looking for. And he told me that story several times, and it was never changed, and he never changed his expressions, his emotions about it. It just got all over him every time. It was extremely important to him that we talked about that. When we played golf, like I said, we played a lot of rounds of golf. And every time we played golf, usually somewhere around the fourth hole, him and I stopped, and we had prayer. And we had kind of what we call a little mini communion, which we had either, if you see this bottle, we had either red or grape Gatorade, and that was kind of our little communion thing. And we'd stop and we'd drink those, and we'd pray for our families, for our wives, our kids, and our grandkids, and our friends. A lot of you in here we prayed for. And that was something we did every day. Thank you, Vic, for keeping us stocked up. That was important. I know we drank a lot of bottles of Gatorade. But that was extremely important to him. He brought the ice chest. He would never let me bring the ice chest. That was his job. And he never, ever did not bring it. And It was so important that we did that. It didn't matter where we was, and we did it, and we prayed with other people and other things, and it was a special, special time. As much as we love golf, we never forgot what that was about. And I can tell you, that there's nothing more humbling than to hear someone praying and them thanking God for putting someone back in your life with them. And he would thank God for putting me back in his life so we could play golf together. And that was such a humbling experience, and I did the same for him. I mean, we were brothers. We were extremely close, and he came into my life at a time that I really needed someone, and you know, it was obvious that it was the same for him, and we made the best of it, without a doubt. The first time that I went back and played Kern River by myself after he passed, his favorite hole out there is a par 5 15, and I birdied that hole. And I went out there, and I went up there, and I picked my ball up out of the hole, and I told myself, I hope you're happy, because every time we played, every time we got that hole, he said, well, this is our favorite hole. I said, this is your favorite hole. And the next day or the day after we'd come back, and this is our favorite hole. No, this is your favorite hole. You know, it never changed. So I told him, I said, well, I hope you're happy. And the last thing, about 2 months ago, he picked me up, and we're going to the golf course, and he told me he had a dream. And he said he dreamed that he went to heaven. And he saw all of his family. They met him and Pat. And he said they all looked amazing. He was so excited. He said they all looked not old. They looked great. He said Pat looked amazing. And he was so excited about that. And I can tell you one thing. Duke knew without a doubt where he was going. And I can tell you that I'm certain that he got there. Thank you.
Thank you for having me here. I don't think I'm going to need the mic. I'm just going to talk loud. I've never done this before. I'm going to do the best I can. Vicki, I'm honored to be here. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing Duke with me. Okay, so my name is Hernan Santiago, and Duke Perry was one of my heroes. I first met Duke when I was in the 8th grade. Dean Perry, his brother, one of my other heroes, brought him to our practice at Mount View because I was bigger than everybody. I was about 5 pounds lighter than I am now. And I was about the same height, so they brought Duke, and Duke fouled me and just pushed me around and beat me up. So I didn't like Duke at all. He came out for a couple of weeks, and I really, really disliked him because he was a jerk. Sorry, guys. Anyways, I met him again. This is the previous speaker saying that Duke came into his life when he needed him. I was lost, man. I was drinking almost every day, partying every day, having a real good time. Not working out, not taking college football serious. God brought Duke into my life through Dean. We started working out, old school workout. My bench press increased significantly, but that's not why I was there. I thought that's why I was there. We prayed. I watched them dance. We listened to the gospel. We ate all the time, which was probably my favorite. Some days he was grumpy, but by the time we left, he was always happy. Anyways, Duke was an acquired taste, and I learned to love him, respect him, and really cherish our times together working out in that gym, his garage, his gym. We shared holy water out of the back of his granite truck. We listened to Carmen. We listened to country. He introduced me to the pistachio pie from Vicky, Vicky's famous pistachio pie, which was awesome. Anyways, I'm going to try to stay on course here because I'll just get carried away, get excited. And like I said, I'm not so good at this, but I'll do the best I can here. Many who knew Duke, I believe, that only knew his tough exterior. But he refers to himself as a grizzly bear, because if you're going to be a grizzly bear. I found out he was just a teddy bear. It's kind of funny because I have it written down just like what you said. Worked out every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 5 p.m. I was late once. He shut the garage on me. When I didn't work very hard, he'd just glare right through me. And I had seen that glare before. I think it was an Arvin glare because I had seen it from several people, including Chuck Chamberlain, Billy Satterfield, and Johnny Robinson. But Duke had the same glare that Dean Perry had where they can stare right through you. It was there where I learned many things. His favorite verse was, "For he who is in me is greater than he who is in this world. For it's not by might nor by power, but by the Holy Spirit, says the Lord." He said that every single time right before we lifted. He said it so much that it's ingrained in my head. So I still use it today at different times. We argue about who was the greatest linebacker to ever come out of Arvin. He claimed, at Arvin, they had a tally system for defensive tackles and defensive points. He claims, and I believe his stories got greater and better every day, but he claimed he held the record for most tackles at Arvin High. So we argued about that all the time, and I embellished some number to make sure that he knew I was better. But just for today, Duke, you hold the record. I still use the same workout I teach strong body classes at Centennial High School. I still teach the same 2x6, 2x4, 2x2, and we don't change our workouts much. I had to change it a little bit because our kids nowadays, they don't focus. But it's the same exact old school workout that we did in Duke's garage. I respected and loved Duke so much, and he was such an inspiration for me that when my wife and I had our child, our first son, we named him after him, Jackson Perry. Duke was more than just a mentor. He was a rock of stability, a source of strength, and a father figure when I needed one the most. I'll miss you, Duke, and we'll always cherish our moments and time together. Thank you, guys.
Good afternoon, guys. Boy, this is going to be tough. I think I know just about everybody in here. I should. But if you don't know me, my name's A.J. Robinson. I met Duke nearest I can tell, about 40 years ago. So I think I was 12 when I first met him. Come to the house. He worked for my dad. And all I remember about his big old arms, and I wanted to be like him. I wanted to lift weights and be strong. We played basketball. He's terrible at basketball, but he could get the rebounds because he was bigger than all of us, right? We were 12, and he was probably 25 or 30. Tough man. I never did get to see him play softball, but I heard all about it. So that few years later on, I got a little older, and I went to work for Granite. And I got to work for him. That was fun. That was fun. There's a lot of people in here I used to work for that were pretty ornery. And, I mean, my dad was their boss, so they were pretty hard on me. Which I get it. I do the same thing to the other kids now. But later, past that, I left town. I come back about 1999, I think, is when Duke and I really, truly became good friends. And came back to town. I had a family. And I started working with Vicki every day. And then me and Duke started playing golf. And we played golf together at least once a weekend for probably 10 years. 10 years or so. We probably played every weekend together. And I worked with Vicki every day. So I really got to be close with the family. Okay, that was the easy part. I'd like to thank Vicki and the kids for letting me speak today, because it's important to me. My dad used to tell me that when you do the hard things in life, the things other people don't want to do, it makes you tougher. So I'm going to be one tough son of a gun when I get done here. I'd like to focus on what Duke was as a man, what he meant to me, and then we'll share a few of his one-liners. I don't want it to get too sad. But Duke was the pillar of this family. Look at it. Thank God you did the math for me, because I'm from Oildale. I couldn't count to 20. But 5 kids, 20 grandkids, and 1 great-granddaughter. It's pretty special. Not to mention the non-family members, like me. And so many of you that he took in as his own. Duke was proud of his kids. Sometimes I'd have to tell him to shut the hell up when we were playing golf, because that's all he'd talk about is his grandkids and his kids, and we're trying to win money here. Something my dad used to always say, the mark of a good man is not what he possesses at the end of his life, but what he gave away along the way. And Duke was a giver. Everyone in this room got something from Duke, whether it was his love, his time, his home, his money, his advice, or his protection. And Lord knows we all got his stories. We couldn't get out of that. One of the main gifts that God gave old Duke was words, as you couldn't shut him up. And he must have passed that on to Ted. That man could talk for hours. It's a good thing he's not up here today. So there's a few of his stories or one-liners that I would like to share, and the first one is, and he's probably told you all this before, but several of us. But he knew where he was going, and his bags were packed. So we all know where he's at. The bigger they are, the harder they fall. How many times have you guys heard that from him? I mean, he wasn't scared of nobody. And he shouldn't have been. He's a tough son of a gun. He told me this when I buried my dad. This is the one thing you can't buy is time. Don't rob me of my blessings. That's when he's trying to give you something. And you didn't want to take it. You took it. He didn't make you have it. And then my favorite, out of all of them, to make a long story short. And every one of us would be like, Lord, I wish he would. Funny story Vicki and I have about him. It's probably in the early 2000s. I think it was you that did it. But we'd make up a lie, basically, or a rumor or whatnot at the beginning of the day and tell Duke about it. Not tell anybody else. And I'd make my rounds throughout the day, go all over the place, come back around 2 o'clock. We'd come in there and I'd say, what is it now? So it'd be a different story. Everybody in the company knew about it, and it had changed about 15 times. So this is I think Vicky come up with this. I don't know, it was either you or Hogg, but it was Hogg. There's 3 kinds of communication in this world. It's telephone, telegraph, and teleduke. Because he couldn't keep a secret for nothing. I don't know what he was like around Christmas time, Vicky. I wanted to share a little story about my son and Duke. This is kind of cute. So everybody knows Duke loved kids. So when Jacob was, 2 or 3, about the time they could start messing around with each other, they would tell each other stupid little dad jokes type things. Anyways, they messed with each other all the time. So my credit card, oddly enough, my credit card gets stolen. And I can't find it. We can't figure it out. And to make a long story short, I won't go through it all. But me and Rhonda were sitting at the dinner table, and we were talking about, how the hell did you lose your credit card, man? I don't ever use it. So we couldn't figure it out. And Jacob's eating cookies or whatever he's eating. He says, I know, Dad. He says, Duke did it. And I go, Duke wouldn't steal my credit card. He's my buddy, and he ain't even around here. What are you talking about? And he goes, yeah, Duke did it. So it was something that he said that rhymed, I guess. And then now, for the next 4 or 5 years, everything he screwed up at my house, Duke did it. Didn't clean up his room, Duke did it. Didn't eat his in, Duke did it. And that lasted 4 or 5 years probably. So Duke got blamed for a lot around my house. Yeah, I'd like to close this thing up before I take up everybody's time. But the main thing I wanted to come out of this was, we're lucky. We're lucky we had him. To the family, he's a great dad, papa, brother, father, husband, and friend. And today I'd really like to celebrate his life and the time that we had with it. So let's make it fun today. Thank you.
Wow, that's quite a bit of people. All right, my name's Matt Friesen. I'm son-in-law to Duke. He had many son-in-laws. I was one of them. Duke, or Papa, was a man of many words. Many, many, many words. These words were always spoken with passion, love, and affection. Duke was never afraid to vocalize his opinions to those around him, whether he knew him or not, including his faith. He loved to give you advice and guidance and always had a story. And that's one of the many reasons I love Duke. First met Duke about 25 years ago before I started dating Leah. And he was always pleasant, but with a father's weary eye on this strange-looking kid from down south. Duke could be stern, opinionated, and intimidating. He was also direct and sincere and immediately garnered my respect. At least early on, he also instilled the requisite amount of father-in-law fear in me. When I started dating Leah, he looked at me like I was a used car she was trying to sell him. As time progressed, he took his time kicking the tires, yet he never took the air out of me or made me feel flat. He just simply knocked me out of alignment. I think back to those times and realize that my future father-in-law was merely treating me as he would anyone presumptuous enough to think himself worthy of one of his beautiful daughters. That was Duke Perry, emotional, kind, personable, but fiercely protective of his family. I took to Duke immediately, and I suppose I won him over too. I loved him right off. I never felt right calling him Dad. He was just Duke, even though he did become my dad. Our long conversations would inevitably turn to family, sports, or weather, and simple pleasures. I cherish those memories. He'd drop anything for you at the drop of a hat and help you for however long, whether you wanted it or not, offer a heap full of advice. He loved to have his family around him. He would sit in his chair watching old movies or sports. house full of screaming children and screaming daughters. Never too engaged to answer a question or give an opinion, be part of the conversation. With a hearty laugh and a huge smile and a big old hug. Or you'd likely find him on the patio for hours on end, taking it all in, enjoying every second. Duke was old school and lived life on his terms, and he put his family first. Duke always seemed to know a guy, right, that could get anything or do anything. And judging by the capacity of this room, he knew a lot of guys. One thing I know for sure is he is loved by many. Through that imposing, stubborn facade was a loving, caring, selfless man. He'd never miss an opportunity to flirt with the girls or joke with the boys. He loved his family and friends greatly, and it showed in all of his actions. He doted on his beautiful, loving bride, Vicky, his wonderful children and grandchildren like no man ever does. Truly a man's man, a family man, and someone I truly look up to. I'll be sure to carry on your legacy and never forget what a truly great man you were and a great human. If you're watching Duke, I'm ready to hear another story you've told 100 times, another and/or, another very oversharing moment, or enjoy another one of your very, very well done burgers. We will all miss you greatly, and you will forever live in our hearts and minds. While Duke is physically gone from our lives and we seek answers as to why him, know that he is never gone. He is here with us all, here with us in the memories we've made of him, here with us in the friendships he's forged, here with us in the grandchildren, children, and families he's helped create, here with us now as we are all celebrating together. While we mourn this terrible loss, let us never forget this impact on us by cherishing the life he had with us. Be good to one another. Forgive one another. What we have right now is precious, and don't take a single day for granted. Live like Duke, or else he'd threaten you with an ass whooping. I'll leave you today with a quote from author Terry Pratchett. No one is actually dead until the ripples they cause in the world die away. So let's keep those ripples moving now and for future generations to come. Thank you.
I wasn't going to talk because I don't follow rules, and Kevin told me I had to write a speech, so I didn't write one, 'cause that's what I do. So I just wanted to say I'm at the angry stage of grieving. I'm pissed. Like, why my dad? Why couldn't it be this? Why couldn't it be this person? Why couldn't it be this person? And I know that's not how he wanted me to be. So I go to the hospital, and he's laying there, and I'm like, he's gonna sit up. He's gonna open his eyes. I know he is. That my dad's strong. He's this big, strong person. Like, he's gonna say, "Hey, babe, I love you." Like, all the things he would normally say to us, but that doesn't happen. I know my dad knew where he was going. He told us all the time, "I'm not afraid of dying. I know where I'm going." So he passed away on Christmas night at 11:55 p.m. And on the 26th, I just needed to get out of the house. I just wanted to go somewhere by myself where other people were, no one that I knew. So I went to Hobby Lobby because they were having a Christmas clearance, of course. And I'm in line, and I hear this couple behind me say, "Angel wings," and that's the only word I heard. So I turn around, and we have a conversation, like my dad. Long story short conversation, but I never shut up. And tell them the story, tell them everything that happened. They tell me stories. I pay for my stuff. I walk out of Hobby Lobby. And when we were teenage girls, my dad would always tell us, "You better not bring home a boy with earrings." If we did, of course Deanna did, because I break rules, he would say, "What's that in your ear? Take that shit out." I can't say some of the things he would say. We're in church. So the guy behind me is saying, hey, ma'am, hey, ma'am. And I turn around. It's a Hispanic guy. He has 2 earrings, one in each ear, and they're big. Big, blue, jewel-looking earrings in his ear. And I'm laughing because Dad would have been like, who is this guy? And he says, I don't know if this is your style, and I don't know if you're going to like this, but something was telling me to buy this for you. And he pulls it out of the bag, and I just start crying. And I tell him, I know this is my dad telling me he's okay. He knows I'm angry. He knows I'm frustrated and upset. But he's saying he's there. He made it. He's in heaven. The guy gave me the angel wings with the heart and the cross in the middle. And I take it home and I tell Mom the story. And I pull the angel wings out of the bag and we put it up against her wall, and it matches everything they have in their living room. And so what I want to say is to my dad, I want to say thank you. Thank you. You know that I'm angry, and you know that I don't understand why, but thank you for giving me the sign, letting me know that you're okay. That you're okay. And at the end, they said my dad was going to last 10 minutes. We're going to take everything out, and he's going to last 10 minutes. Okay, this big guy lasts 3 hours. 3 hours. We talk to him. We tell stories. My sister was Nurse for Sean. Her last name's Friesen. I videotape it because it's so funny. She's like, has the gloves on. She's making making fingers. She's flipping her gloves from doctor to dentist. Derek's on FaceTime. The FaceTime phone is in my dad's teeth, like in his mouth. It was just crazy, but I just want to say thank you, Dad. Thank you for everything that you've done for us. Thank you for showing me that you're okay. And at the end, I told Dad we're going to take care of Mom, and we will forever take care of my mom. And I want to thank everyone for being here. We appreciate everyone that's here, and we appreciate everyone that has reached out and brought food, drinks, hugs, came over and just entertained us for a few minutes so we weren't sitting there bawling. So thank you guys very much. This table for you. Oh, that's my child. Do you want to start? You want me to start? Yeah. Okay. Wow, I have to go after that, so this is great. Do I speak into this? Can you hear me? Do I take it down? I'm Zoe. I'm the eldest granddaughter of Duke, well, Papa. That's the only way I knew him. And say your name?
My name is Dallas.
And she's the youngest granddaughter of Papa. And we wanted to share a couple stories, but mainly something that Chloe wrote that just touches, I feel like, all of us grandkids perfectly. One of the stories Chloe wanted to start sharing, it says that Papa took Chloe Christmas shopping for Mimi, and they went around the antique stores looking for all the perfect trunks for Mimi. He bought Chloe her first Harry Potter book, which, as you know, for us is a big deal in our family. And the whole day when they were looking at antique things, Papa would just tell stories, as he always would, because, as you guys all said, he doesn't stop talking, and would just explain to her all the things that he knew about them, because Chloe was born in 2001, so she doesn't know much about antique stuff. Now she does. And that's when Chloe fell in love with history. That's when she fell in love with antique shopping. And when you see her now, that's definitely her clothes style, too. Dallas, do you want to share?
When Dallas.
Do you want me to say it? What do you want me to say? Dallas wants to share that Papa taught Dallas how to count coins. He played cards with her, and she's a really good Uno player. And for one of my stories is when I was in high school, I went to 4 different high schools, fun times. And my papa, the second high school I went to, I didn't start school for probably like a month until after they started. And every day, Papa would wake me up when school started and be like, get in the car. And we'd drive around Bakersfield. He'd feed me a lot of good food from a lot of good places. And we would just go look at people barrel racing and roping and just drive all over Bakersfield, him telling nonsense stories and stories like everyone's talked about that you've heard at least 100 different times. And he would just laugh, and we'd listen to music, and there's just never a dull moment with him. And with that, I'm going to read what Chloe wrote. She put, when I think of Papa, I can't think of all these big old grand memories with great stories behind them. I think of all the little things Papa did, how he'd always pick me up from school if I called, no matter what the reason, how he'd always be there sitting on his chair ready to see our halls after shopping with Mimi all day, how he would have candy and snacks for us whenever we asked. He would call you over to his chair like he had the biggest secret, and it was a Snickers from his candy stash. How he would always ask his grandkids to be quiet or not to run in the house every 2 seconds and to shut the door. And if he didn't, he'd always grab his belt and snap it, and we would all be scared. She said, I think about beach trips to Pismo Coast Village, because where else would we go? I think about every weekend that we would come over to play cards with him and Mimi, and he would try to teach us how to play, but we were just as stubborn as he was, and we always thought we didn't need his help and that we were smart enough to figure it out. He was always trying to bestow his wisdom and life lessons on us, trying to teach his family and make us better people from all the things he'd learned from his life. One thing about Papa is he was always there. No matter what, you could always rely on him. He would always be there to pick you up if you fell down. That was Papa. He was safe. He was reliable. Just as much as he was your partner in crime, sneaking presents when Mimi thought we didn't, or when under Mimi's nose, and treats that were shoved in drawers. One thing I never once questioned about Papa was how much his family meant to him. We were his everything, and he was definitely our everything. And losing him has a big hole in our heart. And I know looking at all of you guys, just talking to grandkids, but everybody as a whole, we're going to miss him like crazy. Going into Mimi's house and just seeing his chair breaks our hearts. Not having background noise on and hearing a toilet flush scares Shiloh. And it's just never going to be the same. But Papa taught us how to love. And I think he left on Christmas because he knew that we were all going to be together. And that's all he ever wanted. He hated when we fought, but we always fought hard because Papa also taught us that. But he also taught us to love deeper and love more. And I just hope that we can continue to do that as a family, but also as friends, and I mean buddies also from Papa, and that we can always come together just knowing that we were all put into each other's life for a purpose. And thank you.
What a great job by everyone as you shared. we're going to, the family's put together a little bit of a slideshow. And so we're going to let that play right now and just take in some photos across the years, maybe trigger some of your own thoughts and memories. And then we'll wrap up our time here with a couple of thoughts just that I want to pass on to you before we exit this place. But enjoy, as we say here. If you're watching online, just to let you know, the sound will be muted online during the video because sometimes YouTube doesn't like the music we choose because they don't think we have the right to play it. So they'll shut things down, and we don't want that. So if you're watching, I know there are some people who are watching online, so enjoy the photos and just know that there were some great songs that went along with it. some great photos in there and some greater memories that you guys shared. All of you who spoke today, thank you so much. I think you did such a great job of capturing the essence of the man, so to speak, everything about him that makes him who he is to each and every one of us. And I think what's great about those stories and the different things that people shared is that there is a connection in all of that. He is the same. I mean, he was who he was. It didn't matter if it was the grandkids or his friends that he had worked with or anyone in between. Duke was Duke. And that's what the sense that I got out of all of those great memories that were being shared. I want to, before we get out of here today, share just a couple of thoughts with you. And I'm hoping that it's at the end. Yes. And so I want to just share a few other memories or thoughts with you this afternoon from just the pastor's heart of mine for the family. And I feel like it's a must for today, because if we cannot do Duke's memory justice if we don't take a moment and just look at God's word today and what it means for us in a day like today. While I was out at the house recently, I took some pictures in his garage. And if you'd ever been in his garage, in his gym, he had scriptures written all over the walls. And they were telling me that was all over the walls in the prior house. And that was something that he did. And a lot of them were very personal things to him. You heard Hernan share some of that he had spoken into his life. And he wrote things on the wall such as Romans 10:13 that says, "Whoever calls on the name of the Lord shall be saved." And you already heard the stories. And I can tell you with great confidence today that I know that Duke called on the name of the Lord and was saved. I know that that's the most important part of today. In all the memories we share and all the great things that go on, the most important thing for us today is knowing that he called upon the name of the Lord. And that because of that, we find hope in the moments like today. And we have hope. And I say that we have hope because in John chapter 11, Jesus said, "I'm the resurrection and the life, and whoever believes in me will live even though he dies. And whoever lives and believes in me, he will never die." And so we hold on to that hope because these are the truths that Duke lived and believed in. And so as I think about a day like today, many of us, initially, our thoughts are that death is what brought us here today. But death has not brought us together today, but life is what brought us together. We are not here to celebrate death. We're here to celebrate life. And we have been doing a great job at celebrating a great life. And I know that we can rejoice in that as we continue to celebrate today. I know that Duke is celebrating in heaven with his Savior. And Duke had Hebrews 13:5 written on his walls, which declares that the Lord will never leave you nor forsake you. And there was another great thing that Jesus said in chapter 14 of the book of John. He said, "Do not let your hearts be troubled, but just trust in God. For in my Father's house are many rooms, and if it were not so, I would have told you that." And he said, "I'm going to prepare a place for you, and if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me." And Duke had written, "He will never leave me nor forsake me." And Dan, you said, he knew where he was headed. He knew where he was going. He had trust and confidence that his God would not forsake him. And he also had written on his wall things like, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. That my God shall supply all my needs, and rejoice in the Lord always, even in the tough days." As Duke would declare, he felt blessed coming and going. He was ready to meet the Lord. And he would want you to take comfort in that today, in knowing that he was prepared for this moment in time. I know that we will all have moments of sadness as we miss the physical presence of Duke. How can you not miss this guy, right? It's impossible to miss this guy. That's the kind of impression he left upon you when he was around you. You can't forget this guy. And we feel sadness today only because we were blessed to love and be loved by this guy. That's why we feel a sense of sadness. And it's okay because God created us to feel emotions, and it's acceptable to have moments where those emotions overwhelm us. It's okay to be angry. at times. It's okay to be sad, but it's okay to be happy and joyful. All of those things are okay. And so I want you to know that there is great hope and joy in this love, though, that Duke left behind. We've heard that over and over. The guy, how much he loved his family. He left a great legacy. I will tell you that one of my favorite verses in all of the Bible is John 10:10. It says that the enemy comes to steal, to kill, and to destroy. But I have come that you might have life more abundantly. And we have heard that Duke found this life, this renewed life in Christ. And I will remind you of some of those things. That Duke was married to his best friend for 45 years. That is abundant. He had great kids and their spouses, and he loved them deeply. And that is abundant. He had 20 grandkids and a great grandkid, and that is an abundant number. That's abundant. He got to play golf multiple days a week for the last several years. And believe me, he enjoyed an abundance of golf and an abundance of laughs. And now, today, he is enjoying the abundance of heaven. I know that these things are true because I share in the hope that Duke shared in. The hope that is found in a God that would send his son to die for us, and the hope that is found in a Savior that would willingly give his life for you and for I. The hope that is found in the truth of God's word that Duke so desperately held onto and clung to, that was so important in his life. I have that hope in that today. And for each of you who are here, my prayer for the days to come are that the moments of sadness that overtake us, that they will be turned into gladness as you think about the promises of God and the joy of the memories you have of Duke, of the promises that he gave to you, of the joy you have in his memory, and of the joy you have of today and the things that you have heard. I will say that the joy of knowing and loving Duke will never fade away. AJ, I love how you said that, Ripple. It will never fade away. And the warmth of knowing his love for you, especially his family, his kids and grandkids, I hope that the warmth of his love will fill your hearts to overflowing every time you think about him. I hope that that just flows and flows and flows and warms you on the inside when you think about how much he loved you. I close up with this because I know we've heard it, we've said it, but we can't close up our time without saying those words. Once a bear, always a bear. And if you're going to be a bear, be a grizzly. We're going to close in this song, and then we'll close in prayer. Let's pray. Father, thanks for this day. Thank you for the words that have been spoken, the memories that have been shared. Thank you for allowing us to gather together to catch a glimpse into the life of a wonderful man. Thank you for the legacy that he has left behind, the mark on the world that he has made by the life that he has lived, these kids and grandkids that will continue to carry on who he was and who he is to each and every one of us. In the days ahead, will you continue to comfort the family in their moments of need, of grief, of sorrow, of whatever emotions they may feel, God, would you surround them with your presence? May they rely on these same truths that we know Duke relied on to carry them through each day. Would you bless them as they gather together and support one another? Would you bless the fellowship and the food and the things that will happen this afternoon as we gather together to continue a time of celebration? May you be glorified. May Duke and his life be honored. And would you bless all that transpires? In this we pray in your name. Amen. The family has requested that any of you who would like to can come out to join them at their home for a time of food and fellowship after. The address is 2106 Willowbrook Street. You can see me if you need that address, or you can ask one of the family members if you need it to go on out there, but they want to invite you to come and join them. And with that will end our service and our time here together, but we definitely want you to come and enjoy, be with them, share your stories and your memories, because we know there are a lot of them in this room. So God bless you. Again, thank you for coming and supporting the family and sharing with us today. Have a blessed day.